All right, welcome to HoopsTracker. Jerry Howard, your host. HoopsTracker, your source for Colorado basketball. We have a special guest and a special edition. We have Coach Tony Speights joining us. Tony, welcome back.
How are you?
I'm good, man. This is awesome. And today, our topic, we're going to jump in and talk about kind of exposure myths and a little bit more on the recruiting process. And Tony, you've been doing this for over 20 years. And there's always different myths going on as far as I have to play on the right team. If I don't play and go to the right school in kindergarten, I'm not going to make Duke when I graduate. A lot of different things are going through parents' minds, especially these days with all the NIL and the money coming in. Give your kind of intro on this whole myth and recruiting and exposure, and we'll tackle each some of these myths that we put together.
Well, I think probably over the last 20 years, right? Recruiting and how players get recruited and how coaches recruit players has changed just a ton. NIL plays a part, right? And it plays actually a pretty large part, especially at the top, right? Where that's where the big money is.
Yeah.
But I think, to be recruited, I think there are some myths out there. There's some truths out there. I think, some of the things that we're going to talk about, kids just have to be prepared and kids have to go play, understanding one of the things about recruiting, where is it different? It's different. We have a portal now,
Mm,
right? So we have a
yeah.
portal and there's still money involved in that. There's much more access to foreign players, right? So, what's the difference from 20 years ago? Kids that are getting recruited or now some of these kids are struggling to get recruited, right? Because of all the factors that come into play.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think too, I still will say this, a lot of it's true. If you really want to play, right,
Mhm.
there's a place for you to play.
Absolutely.
I think in this recruiting thing, parents really sometimes, and kids too, really get tripped up on the level of play,
Mhm.
and so the reality is, I think everybody wants to play D1 to some degree. Not everybody, but a lot of those kids want to play D1, and I think when we talk about less than 1% make the WNBA or pro leagues across the world, I think we're looking to get recruited to go, one, compete, right? You're going for basketball, but two, to get that education. So on the backside of whatever basketball becomes, you have an education and are able to go do some things.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this first myth. If I'm good enough, coaches are gonna find me. True, false, and I guess good, we have to qualify and define what good enough means, right? I mean,
Well, I think
if I can dribble a basketball and chew gum, does that qualify as good enough?
I think if you're good enough, I think that is a true statement, right?
Mhm.
If you're good enough and you're producing at that level,
Mhm.
coaches are gonna find you. I think as much as, like, even at the top level where kids, talk about what club they played for. There's some kids at these top levels that played for some nondescript clubs, right? Some unaffiliated clubs that were able to find some success, right? Because they were doing things the right way. So if
Mm.
you're good enough, a coach will find you.
Now, if I'm good enough, I mean, let's qualify this a little bit more because if I'm a D1 player and I'm a legit D1 player, high mid major, big four player, absolutely they're going to find you. Now, if you're hiding out and you're not playing in the big club tournaments and you're not doing certain things, I think it'll be a little bit harder for them to find you, but if you're 6'5" and you can play some hoops, we've seen 6'5" players who can play a little bit, get scholarships and and things like that, but, we have to qualify that, right? What does good enough mean? Like, here in Colorado, we have a ton of talent, and if we're putting in, 10 to 20 Division I players every year, and we put in about 80 to 100 college players every year, I think you're right. There is a place for everybody. But, you know, if I'm good enough, I mean, uh, you need to be able to shoot, you need to be able to score, and you said the influence of the European game has really affected players. So players need, you know, they if I'm a post player, I still need to dribble. I still need to be able to shoot the outside as we're seeing in the WNBA, right? I mean, just the other night, you saw Ashton Prechtel and Reagan Beers step out and hit some big threes, even though they both are considered centers in the WNBA.
And I think, good enough, right? Good enough is a little vague, right? Skills wise, you have to be good enough, right? You have to not only shooting, but you have to be able to pass, you have to be able to ball handle. You have to have a basketball IQ. So there's some things defensively, you got to be able to to guard someone.
Right.
You have to be able to do some things, if your talent will stand out, right? Talent will stand out if the pool isn't shallow, right? If it's a
Mhm.
shallow pool, let me try to state that again, that the pool shallow and the talent will stand out there.
Right.
What a lot of coaches are looking for, I think a lot of people put stock into kids that can just score,
Yeah.
right? But if you look at sometimes how recruiting is done, recruiting coaches can recruit a score.
Yeah.
Right? But coaches can go recruit a ball handler. Coaches can go recruit a kid that's an athlete
Mhm.
and that can play that pressure defense, you
Right.
know? When we say, "Are you good enough?" Some of that is, do you have those requisite skills to play at that level,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And then when you get on a stage in club basketball, are
Mm.
you able to be that same kid depending on what your role is, right?
Right.
Are you still able to show those skills against maybe higher level competition of kid? So
Exactly.
if you're good enough, that will show over levels, right? Be it
Mhm.
5A, 4A, 3A.
Right.
That will show over levels and it will show when those kids play that better competition. And then a lot of things come with good enough. Are you good enough? Are you doing the right things? Are you good enough in the classroom? Are you good enough on the practice floor?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you carry yourself? Are you a next play kid? Right? Do you pout? So there's a lot
Mhm.
that goes, like I said, am I good enough? Coaches will find you, but talent-wise, if you're good enough, you'll show up in spaces
Mm.
where coaches will see you.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, and as you talk about this, right, with the portal, my dream might be Division 1 or bust, but now with the portal, college coach is gonna take a player with at least 1 year college experience almost over a high school player unless they're an All-American, so going that different route, but we'll get to that. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Well, let's tackle myth number 2. One big game or highlight film gets you recruited. True or false? And there's some gray area here.
I think one big game, we'll start with game, highlight
Mhm.
film, different kind of story.
Yeah,
One game can get you on the radar.
yeah.
You can
Mhm.
have a really big game and that will get you noticed. And then we start to, I think then once you get noticed, you build that following, to see if that, so we can see if you're a one-hit wonder,
Yeah,
or maybe you're that kid, you could be a diamond in the rough, right? Or you're that kid that's flying under the radar,
yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
in the recruiting world where, we're talking about 15, 16, and 17-year-old kids,
Mhm.
from 15 to 16, from 16 to 17, are you making that jump,
Right.
right?
Well,
And so it can get you on the map. Highlight films might not get you on the map,
highlight
you
films
know?
might get you noticed, might get someone to come watch you, might.
Correct.
Right? I mean, if they see enough film and they see and we'll talk a little bit, but basically what a college coach wants to see is maybe 1, maximum 2 minutes of highlight. Don't put music on it because 'cause they're not dancing to it, and they wanna see half a game and how you're playing, and then it's like your resume, right? Your resume is what gets you the phone call to get the interview, and that's what that highlight film does. Now, you and I both know over the years, a kid may blow up in a game at the right time in July, and all of a sudden a coach is intrigued, and we've seen players get that Division I scholarship even though they're not a Division I player. And it was because they played really well in that one game or they played really well in that tournament. And as we both know, Division I coaches now, they're very limited on how much they can really see kids, right? High school games and, NC2A certified recruiting events, and there's only 4 in the spring. There's 2 in the spring and there's 2 in the summer. And so, there's only so much time that they can get, but they're trying to do their homework more, right? So, I think, you know, you're right. I think one big game gets you on the radar and they'll see you. And it could be at a showcase camp. It could, I mean, for the D2s. Now, here's one thing that a lot of parents and players don't understand is Division I coaches and Division II coaches. I mean, it's a small community and they all talk and they all have friends. So I've got friends that are at a Big 4 school that might ask me to go watch if I'm a D2 or D3 coach, go watch a particular kid and give input, you know? So those things do happen and so, you know, you can get seen at some of these other places, but getting on the radar, one big game, it gets you a look.
Sure. It'll get your foot in the door, and for a lot of these kids, once you get your foot in the door, that's your opportunity, right? And
Mhm.
what you hope for our kids is that what you hope is that they've done the work,
Right.
right? Them being seen as an extension of what they put in,
Mhm.
and so then we start to look for consistency. Who is this kid? Are they the same kid? Like I said, have we missed them?
Right,
Are they, maybe they got going because of competition or lack thereof competition. So when competition's in
right.
front, right, are they this kid? Then when we get to that summer season, because there's a summer viewing, we see this kid with their team, then we get a chance to see him again in July,
Mhm.
right? And then we try to combine all of those factors and see, if this kid is a kid that fits into our program.
Right. Exactly. Well, let's tackle this next one. I've gotta play on the Nike circuit, the Adidas circuit, the Under Armour circuit. I've gotta play on one of those circuits to get noticed.
If you're a good enough player, you can play on the Converse circuit. Coaches will come and find you there,
They will.
right?
Yep.
Coaches are recruiting. We talked a little bit about this. Coaches are recruiting kids. They are not recruiting shoes.
Yeah.
Um, and so it doesn't hurt to play on those top circuits, right? And you're going
No.
to get the vast majority of your coaches, in those spaces. But
Mhm.
once again, do you have to get the most exposure? Yes.
Well, I mean, here's 2 examples of 2 kids that did not play on the shoe circuit that played either in the NBA or the WNBA. You got Reggie Jackson, who played at Palmer, who longtime NBA player. You got Michaela Onyenwere, who played for the Lady Blackhawks, which wasn't on the major, and she's playing in the WNBA today. So there's 2 examples. Derek White's probably another one. Did not play on the shoe circuit, and he's playing in the WNBA or in the NBA. So you know, you don't necessarily have to, but like you said, your point, coaches flock to the Nike circuit, the Adidas circuit, the Under Armour circuit, the Puma circuit, right? They flock to those events because traditionally that's where the best players are. And you might be the second best. Yeah, I mean, you might be on their second team and you'll still get noticed, right? So there is an opportunity, but do you have to? Do you need to? You know, that's up to you because the shoe circuit, it costs money to play on that shoe circuit. And as a family, you got to make that decision, right?
Sure. It does, but in today's world, a lot of top talent doesn't pay for
Right.
that top club?
Well, that you gotta be that 6'5" kid, that 6'10", 6'11" kid, high
Well, you have to be that
profile.
sponsored kid
You
is
gotta
what
be
that
that sponsored kid.
right, or
That's right.
that sponsored team because a lot of the shoe companies are just pouring money into that, and
Yeah.
some of it for our kids, some of it for our kids is we're
Mhm.
trying to woo the kid with shoes and give 'em
Mhm.
shoes, gear,
Right.
and, hey, you can play here, you can play there. We have a lot of our kids, boys, girls, playing out of state,
Yeah. They are.
right? And so these places are making it affordable to them to go do that, right? So it's not costing not necessarily at the top of AAU basketball, and AAU
Right.
basketball can cost and top. It's another topic for another day. But yeah, I think, like I said, coaches are going to find players. I don't
Mhm.
think, you have some teams that are independent. That's still a thing, right? And so you don't necessarily, they get invited to these spaces,
Right.
right? But they might not necessarily be a Nike team or an Under Armour team,
Yeah.
or an Adidas team. So
Yep, absolutely. So here's a big myth, right? D1 is the only real college basketball. What do you say to that?
it's a joke. I think there's so many levels. It goes back to a statement I said earlier. If you are really interested in playing basketball, there's a place for you to play, be it JUCO Division 1, JUCO Division 2, NAIA,
Mhm.
right? Has that tiered system too. Division 1, Division 2, Division 3,
Right.
right? There are places to play um, out there, and some of it is I think for kids. I think it depends on what you're looking for, because I'll say it, that division life, that Division 1 life isn't for everybody.
Nope.
You can look at the NIL deals, you can look at the money, and that on the surface that can look appealing,
Mhm.
but are you ready for the responsibilities that come with all of that? And some kids are. Yeah,
Some are and a lot aren't. I mean, there's a lot of misconceptions about going D1. People don't realize, you know, you get up, you go to school, you hit film, you hit practice, strength and conditioning, then you gotta do homework, and then you gotta sleep, and then you start it all over again. People don't realize the time commitment, and you gotta love it. One thing, there's what, 370 Division I schools across the country, and there's over 1,500 Division II, Division III, NAIA schools, and then the JUCOs are probably another, um, 500 or something like that. I mean, it's crazy how much basketball there is out there that you can go play at, and you can look at players like recently, right? We look at, someone like Dalton Connect, who's playing for the Lakers. Out of high school, he went JUCO. He spent 2 years at JUCO, then he went to Northern Colorado for 2 years, and thank goodness for COVID, he got a 5th year, he goes to Tennessee, and then it's a done deal. I mean, he took the long road, and it paid off for him, but he went where he could play and get experience and move on. Alright, let's do myth number 5, and then we'll wrap up this session. If I don't have offers by my junior year, I've missed my chance. What do you think about that?
see question number 4, some of it is like we talked a little bit earlier about development of kids. Some kids develop late and some kids develop early, some kids develop late, right? I've had kids that start high school on the girl side, start high school on the JV level who are Division 1 kids,
Yeah.
and it's just when did they decide to grow and get going and find, or they're playing behind someone, right? So they had to get
Mhm.
an opportunity to go grow. So, if you don't have any offers, doesn't mean you can't have Division 1 offers.
Right.
Yeah, like I said, you might be in a program and in good programs where you have to sit behind kids and you have to wait your turn,
Yeah.
you know? And then you just have to make sure one of the things is with our kids is, if they haven't transferred high schools yet, right? Because that's a thing now.
Mhm.
Kids are having to wait. and develop. If you waited your turn, but you did all those right things,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
You're in the gym
Right.
before practice, you're after practice, you're lifting weights, you're playing for a club. You have a high school coach that develops you. You're playing in a club system that develops you. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? And and
absolutely.
and as your body grows, sometimes, man, just as an aside, sometimes we have these. I think what I've seen from my experience, you know, my recent experience is we're happy that our kids are playing 17s. That's a big deal. But your kid's 15. Your kid's physically not ready.
Right.
And then that impacts their confidence,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So, the question is, I don't have any offers by my junior year. For some of our kids, they're still growing into their bodies,
Yeah.
right? But
Absolutely.
as you grow, if you've done those things, right, basketball wise, to put yourself in a position, absolutely, you can go anywhere, like I said, from Division 1 to JUCO.
Right.
No, and if you once again, same thing. If you're invested in playing and
Mhm.
you're doing a lot of right things, there's somewhere for you to play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there always is somewhere for you to play, and especially with young men, a lot of them don't grow until they're 19 or even 20. I mean, there's usually after high school. I mean, Derek White's a great example of that. He grew 3 or 4 inches after high school. But he kept doing the work. I mean, the thing is you keep doing the work, play at your level. Yes, play up to see where you need to work on your skills, but, if you don't have offers your junior year, I can tell you a lot of young men and women who don't have offers their junior year and their senior year, they get big time offers and then they go on to play. There's and especially now with the portal being such a factor in recruiting, it's
Mhm.
critical. I mean, it's okay to go play 1 year of junior college because most freshmen aren't gonna play if they go to a 4-year school. They're gonna develop, they're gonna redshirt, they're gonna grow, they want them for 5 years. And then now with some of the new rules that are coming out, it's gonna even affect more of the high school recruiting. So it's interesting. Parents, kids, young men, young women, be patient, trust the process. One of the big things I always like to say, if you're not sure what level you're at, ask your high school coach, ask your club coach. A lot of players have player development coaches. Ask them, where do you think I'm at today? You know, can I get to these other places? And you might have to go to the junior college route. That's okay. I mean, we just
Well,
go
for
ahead.
some people that don't know, and this is unpopular to some, you are when you're playing these tournaments and coaches are looking to you and they're starting to talk to you, you're at the level of who's recruiting you.
Yeah,
So if you're being recruited at the time by a Division 2 coach and there's multiple Division 2 coaches, right? That's who you are today. It doesn't mean you can't ascend,
right.
but those are the coaches that are looking at you,
Mhm.
right? If it's a JUCO level coach, that's who you are, which then leads to having some honest conversations about your game. And in today's world of basketball, a lot of times, not always, because there are people out there that are surrounded by truth tellers.
Mhm.
We want to hear everything good about our player, but we don't want to hear what our kid needs to work on or can get better. So, to my
Right.
point of you're being recruited at a JUCO, they probably see some holes in your game, and youth can be a hole, right? Youth
Yeah.
can be in terms of you just need to maybe get a little older and a little bigger. You bring up Derek White, great example. If you talk to people in his camp, Marcus and those guys, man, they knew that kid was a pro in high school. They knew he was going to be a pro. He just wasn't big enough, ready enough, right? But what did
Right.
that kid lived in the gym,
Yeah.
right? Lived in the gym, stayed in the gym, and then he hit a growth spurt. He went where he played, right? Who was recruiting him? Didn't have
Yep.
anything out of high school, had a walk-on offer down there down south.
Yep.
Kid down there gets an opportunity, blows up. That kid's a year late to the NBA, to the world, right? Because he had to
Right.
redshirt, the old
That's
rules,
right. Yeah. No, I mean,
and then
that's
he goes to CU and just goes crazy.
yeah.
right? And so, like I said, he was who recruited him, but then he was able to climb out of that station and get to the next place. And there's a lot of examples.
Right.
Not a lot, but there's a few examples in that league. So,
Yeah.
um, to your question, you are who's recruiting you at that moment.
Yeah. No, you are. I mean, this has been great, right? We knocked out the first 5 myths. We'll do another segment and round out the second one, and we'll probably I'm writing more myths down because there's a whole lot more that we need to talk about. Because I know you and I have both had experiences over the years where people have, tried to buy their way into a scholarship, or they've tried to maybe get around putting in the work. There is no getting around to putting in the work. You have to put in the work. That is to get you across the first door. And there's many doors that you have to go through in order to get that scholarship. So, Tony, this has been great, man. I can't wait for us to chop up the next 5 and we'll create a few more myths on along the way to knock down because I just think it's so important, especially right now, this time of year where everybody's starting that recruiting process. And then we'll talk more about some of the other things. But this has been great, Tony.
Yep, it's been fun.
All right, man. We'll catch you on the next one.
Alrighty. Be good.
All right.